Welcome to Something Positive for Positive People. I'm Courtney Brain. Something Positive for Positive People is a 501c3 nonprofit organization that provides mental health resources to people who are struggling with the stigma of having a positive STI. I shouldn't say positive STI. I always try to freestyle it and I say it different every time. I was listening to one of my favorite podcasts and he says at the beginning of each show what the podcast is about. But I feel like at this point, people who listen to this podcast know what it's about. So I basically interview people with herpes about their experiences from diagnosis to disclosure. Yeah, we just end up having real-ass conversations that ultimately show us that regardless of the diagnosis, regardless of having herpes, like there's real-life shit that's going on around that just doesn't really get any attention. When we look at the numbers and they say this many people have an STI, this many people have herpes, it doesn't really give a story. It doesn't give life experiences to those. So that's kind of what this podcast does. Shout out to Jordan Harbinger Show for constantly doing that and then having that thought click in my head. We don't have to say your name at all if you don't want me to on the podcast. Like I have no reason to say what your name is.
Doesn't matter.
All right,
It's
well,
up to you.
Today we got Hanna. And Hanna, how old are you?
28.
Since we're not doing the anonymous thing, I gotta ask you. So you did the Shooters Gotta Shoot podcast. You talked about your experience living with herpes. Are you tired of that yet? Like, is that kind of your thing now that people know?
I would like to think it's not my thing, but I do think it's funny because I do comedy, so I do stand-up and stuff, and like, you know, I'm a white girl who grew up in a cul-de-sac. I feel very lucky in my life. So I wasn't very super rich or anything, but like as far as we hear about struggles, especially like now in this time, I do feel really lucky in my life. And so up until I got herpes, I never really had like a backstory, you know? So I got recruited to do America's Got Talent. And then they ended up dropping me because I didn't have like a story. You know, I didn't have like a struggle in my life that I could talk about. And ever since I got herpes, someone's like, Hanna, you finally got some struggle. You finally got some struggle you can relate to. Not that I'm like the coolest person or like, you know, I have white girl problems. But, you know, I have problems just like everyone else. But I do feel like in my comedy it's become a thing because it's something that is very specific to me and that I do think people are afraid to talk about. And it is a struggle with mental health. I suffer from anxiety and depression. I already take medication for that. And things have happened to me sexually that were like abusive before this. So I do think it's something that I talk about that's like, I don't want to say it's like my struggle now because I know there are way bigger problems in the world, but like it does feel like a huge problem. So like anyone listening to this, I'm sure it's because they've either just found out or they're feeling bad about it. And sadly, people are like, oh, now you have a struggle, but it's people who don't have herpes. So I'm like, wow, you think that's like a huge struggle that I have? But it has been sort of a thing that I've just been talking about recently because it did happen like 6 months ago, first of all. So I feel like I'm the type of person that I just want to spit it out, like I word vomit everything just because I'm worried someone else is going to talk about it and talk about it behind my back. So I'd rather be the first person to be like, what up, bitches, I have it, fuck all of you. But I do think it's given me some real shit to talk about in a way of stand-up because I always talk about, you know, like dating and like job stuff or my family, but nothing really that's like, I feel like talking about this has connected me to people, and I don't know if that's a good thing. Like I definitely don't want to be like the herpes comic, but I don't mind talking about it because I feel like I was so sad when I first got it that I feel lucky that I have a career or a job where I can talk about it. My guy friend was like, you're the first who's going to make money off having herpes. Yeah, so I do feel lucky in that sense, but, you know, I still struggle with it, like, you know, when I'm not in comedy. Because when I'm talking about it with comedy, it's like, I don't really give a shit what these people think because I'm not trying to have sex with them, you know?
Yeah.
So, like, telling a group of strangers I have herpes is like, it doesn't really bother me because I'm like, I'm not telling them in a way that affects them. Mm-hmm. It's kind of like telling my parents. I told my parents and my brother because I did it in a comedy special that I had just done. And I wanted to tell them my parents thought I was on drugs because I was so depressed when I first got it because I was living at home when I got it. But I ended up telling my brother because I didn't want him to hear it from someone or him to see it in the special and then have judgments. I just wanted to talk to him about it like a real person. And my brother doesn't even know what herpes is. He was like, I get canker sores. It's okay. And I'm like, all right, well, we see who's the prude of the family. But, yeah, so I think it's, I've been talking about it a lot recently, but to be fair, it, has happened recently, and also we're in lockdown, so it's, life isn't really happening, so it's kind of just, me and my herpes living alone,
Yeah. Have you heard any herpes jokes prior to your diagnosis?
Yeah, I have. Do you know who Drew Michael is?
Yeah.
Have you heard his herpes bit?
I did.
My friend sent it to me when I got it, and she was like, dude, you should just do this. You should just talk about it in your stand-up, because she loves Drew Michael, and she was like, I would still have sex with him even though he has herpes. I don't care. And I didn't know enough about herpes, so I was always like, okay, but, not that I was super against anyone who had it. I didn't know enough about it, you know?
Yeah.
And, but yeah, no, I had heard Drew Michael's bit, and it did make me feel a lot better. And I actually agree with him. The fear of getting it is way worse than having it. Because, once you have it, it's like, all right, now I have it, so whatever. But I used to be so scared of getting it, because you know how they don't test you? If, they don't test you for it now in your blood, because 80% of the world has it, basically, now. So they say that if you have it, then it will cause this all this mental shit. So they don't even test people's blood for it, because it would cause more mental damage. And I'm like, so I used to, every time I had sex, or if the condom didn't work or whatever, I would always just go straight to the gynecologist and be like, I think I have it. And they'd be like, why do you think you have herpes? I'm like, I just think I do. I would just be like, I have it. And then so when I got it, it was kind of finally just I felt like I was, in a way, manifesting it, because I was so worried about it all the time. And then one guy who I, kind of trusted and I liked, he was the most surprising. I was the least, and that kind of shows you too that don't believe in the stigma, because that's how you fucking get herpes. If you think, oh, it's, you walk into Hooters and you get it. It's that's not how it is. It's this guy was an engineer. He graduated with honors. He was fucking Mormon, homeschooled in high school. It's such a, anyone can get it, and so many people have it, that, I just think the fear of getting it, I guess back to Drew Michael's joke, is worse.
Yeah. And hearing herpes jokes, I guess, before having it versus after, over the last 6 months, I know when I was first diagnosed, it seemed like I saw that shit all over the place. There was always a comment about herpes or STIs. Was that similar experience for you? Did you notice it more?
Yeah, that's so funny, because I was really sick, because I got the flu when I got it. I don't know if you had the same thing.
Yeah, I had body aches, chills, and a fever.
Yeah, so I couldn't get out of bed for a week. And I was so sick, so I was watching Inside Amy Schumer, and the whole episode was herpes was the punchline. And I was like, God fucking damn it. But I don't know, there was a funny sketch in it where Paul Giamatti's playing God, and he's basically like, you have herpes, but I'll give you a negative, I'll make it negative if you do these things. And he's like, can you call your mom more? And she's like, herpes isn't that bad, right? So it kind of made me feel better, because it was just, and then it was all about STDs. So there was a sketch about AIDS, and I had a couple of friends who were diagnosed with AIDS recently. So, and not that it's, AIDS is, I don't know what it's like, but I know now with medicine and everything else, you can live a perfectly healthy, normal life. And but at the end of the day, herpes isn't, it doesn't really affect your health in the way that, it could be worse, is what I'm saying. And I'm not trying to say anything bad about AIDS, because I don't know enough about it.
Yeah.
But I do know now doesn't seem that bad.
Yeah, and that's because of advances in medication. There's a campaign right now, U equals U, undetectable equals untransmittable. So if someone is diagnosed with HIV or has AIDS, they're able to get on medication to where if they're on it regularly and they make all their follow-up appointments, they can get their viral load to undetectable, which means you cannot transmit the virus. It would be cool to see something like that for herpes, but there's just not. And there's always a possibility of being able to pass it on to somebody, unfortunately. But, like, that's where we are in terms of the HIV medication at this point.
Yeah, I think, I take the daily Valtrex, so, to prevent outbreaks just because I'm a very stressed out person and I could see myself in the first year having an outbreak every 2 seconds. Plus, I have really bad eczema, so I have eczema all over my body and I get really bad dry skin. And so when I first got herpes, I thought I was having an eczema outbreak because I was worried I had gotten COVID. So I got 2 COVID tests and they were negative and I was freaking out. And then I was like, it hurt when I peed, obviously, but I hadn't done a full inspection because I couldn't get out of bed, 1, and 2, I thought my eczema was flaring up because that's what happens when I get sick. So, but then it just, I saw the gynecologist virtually, so I went spread eagle over Zoom. And it was really tough. Like, I remember the night before, I stayed up the entire night before my gynecologist appointment, and I looked at, I'm basically a gynecologist now. The amount of vaginas I looked at to, like, compare my own to, I was like, mine's a little different, like, it's not that pattern, I'm, like, trying to read it like Morse code. I'm just like, oh, no, mine goes a little left. And then in 2 seconds, I, like, opened my legs. The gynecologist was like, yeah, that's herpes. I'm like, you didn't even get a good look. She was like, I was like, my Zoom camera's not great. Like, trying to make excuses. And she's like, look, I know. And I start crying, And she's like, I know this seems like a big deal. But she's like, I see this every single day. And every single day, it feels like a big deal. And, like, to everyone, it feels like a big deal. And the main problem is, like, the stigma around it. It's really not that big of a deal.
Yeah. And
oh, no, sorry.
No, don't apologize, please.
I don't think I was going to say anything.
Just close out sentences with, and,
yeah, I always do that. And I'm like, and that's it. That's all I have.
And sips water. All right. So, one thing, well, we're already here, I guess, in terms of your story. Like, you talked about the receiving of your diagnosis. What was happening with you that presented your first symptoms? Like, what was going on with dating? What was happening when, what was it, a sexual encounter that recently occurred, or what?
Yeah, so I was living in my parents' basement for Corona, and I started dating a guy in D.C., and, like...
And where are you?
Now I'm in New York.
Okay.
Because I came back after I got herpes. I was like, well, I'm not going to date this guy anymore. And it's not because he gave me herpes. That's I want to make clear. It was because he had lied about it and lied about his partners. And just, like, so I'll tell the story of what happened and why I was so angry with this man is, we hadn't gone on, like, too many dates, but, like, in quarantine, things just get it heats up fast. And, like, you're hanging out all the time. I went to his birthday party. I met all his friends. And then one night we didn't have a condom, and I asked him if he had, had sex with anyone. And he said no, not since he got tested before quarantine. And since quarantine, he hadn't seen anyone. I was like, and you don't have, I was like, you know what's funny? I said, I swear to God, if you give me herpes, I'll murder you. Which sucks, because now I can't murder him, because I literally made a threat.
You're totally a liar now.
Yeah. Yeah, now I'm just a fucking coward, because I can't do it. But, then he went on a trip, which just shows this guy's recklessness in the middle of COVID. So it was like, we didn't use a condom on probably that Sunday, And by Tuesday, I was hit with I was like hit in a weird way. I was like, oh, I don't feel very good. I don't know. And then like for a week, I just could not get out of bed. And I'm texting this guy, and I'm worried you gave me COVID, and like, you know, I'm not seeing my parents because I'm like quarantined in the basement, and I hadn't really been seeing them anyway. Like I was staying away from them, but like, I told my mom I was getting sick, so I was like, don't even come downstairs. Like I don't know. I'm like really worried about this. And then I got a test and it was negative, and I'm like, this is so weird. And then I looked up like STDs associated with the flu, and it said herpes, but I hadn't seen any bumps or anything. So that's when I first checked, is when I first got sick. But I didn't see any bumps, so I was like, okay, I don't think it's herpes. I don't know. Maybe can you get the flu? I like was looking up all this shit, and I'm like texting this guy who's on vacation. I'm like, are you sure you haven't had sex with anyone? Like, I'm really, really sick, and like, it's not COVID. I'm gonna go see a gynecologist. He's like not responding to me, which I'm like, this is a problem. We were texting every day. So to go from texting every day to be like, I'm sick, and then I don't hear from him, I'm like, okay, what the fuck is going on? And then I tell him I'm going to the gynecologist. He doesn't respond. And then I call him after she tells me it's herpes, and he picks up on the first ring. And he's like, yeah, like, I don't want to put it back on you, but, like, who have you? And I was like, no, we're not doing this. We're not going to be gaslighting me right now, because I know for a fact I didn't have it. And there's no way it's just been sitting with me for 4 months. Like, I hadn't had sex. Like, I was just like, there's no way. Like, you are the last... There's no way I gave it to you and then got the flu. Like, that's not how this works. And I was like, no, you lied to me. I know you're lying. You're being sketchy. Just fucking own up to your shit. And then he was like, okay, like, I slept with 5 girls. And I was like, did you use a condom with one of them? And no, he hadn't. So he had to go down that list, and then he goes, yeah, I think there's this one girl who's, like, pretty sketchy, and I was like, you know what, do not fucking call that girl sketchy. I was like, she's not sketchy, because guess what, if you have herpes, you're sketchy, because now we're fucking sketchy, and I'm not sketchy, you're sketchy. You're the only sketchy person here. You fucking lied to me. So, like, how is she sketchy? And then, so I keep calling him. I'm like, did you talk to the girl? He's like, no, she didn't text me back, and it's kind of awkward to call her. I was like, I don't give a fuck if it's awkward. You're picking up the phone, and you're calling her right now, because we need to trace this back. Like, what the fuck are you doing? You know what I mean? Like, he's, like, dilly-dallying, probably fucking other girls, and I'm, like, pissed off. I'm like, we need to find this. I was like, actually, now that I know it's from you, it didn't really matter, but it just, like, it bothered me in my mind. He was so nonchalant about it. I was just like, this is the reason it fucking spreads, dude. Like, and he claims he didn't know he had it, which I don't believe a word he fucking says. So,
he lost all credibility at this point.
Yeah, it's like he kept lying. And then I blocked him on everything. And he found my fan page on Facebook and messaged me on that. And was like, clearly you blocked me, but, like, you have to believe me that he didn't know. And, like, you're being really mean. He told me I was being mean to him. And I was like, I'm being mean to you? Grow up. Are you fucking 5? Like, I'm like, you pussy? Like, I'm not fucking mean. You know, I'm being mean. But also, he did just give me herpes. Like, that was what was blowing my mind. And, like, I've had a lot of bad relationships that have been, like, gaslighty and just, like, very abusive emotionally. And so I didn't like this guy enough to, like, really be
invested?
Shocked.
Oh.
Yeah, invested or shocked. Like, I was just like, of course this happened with this guy. Like, I thought he was a good guy, but, like, I had just been through so much shit that, like, by the time this guy was still gaslighting me, I just did not even care about him at all enough to be like, I'm sorry that you're going through this too. I'm like, no, bitch, we are not going through this together. You did this to me, and then you weren't owning up to it.
Yeah.
And that's where I'm like, I don't know. It's like, it was, to take it back a little bit, like.
Before you do that, can I, like, highlight something that you just said here?
Yeah.
So, you I don't know what it is about you and where you are in your life, other than the fact that you've been in, like, you had relationships that were abusive. But what I've seen consistently from women who, and it's 100% women that I've spoken to, is that even if they got herpes from a guy and they know who it was from, or if this was, someone who was eventually caught in a lie, or like they found Valtrex in his drawer after he said he didn't have herpes and they caught him in the act or caught him in a lie about it, there would come a time where they would end up coddling the guy, like, oh my God, I have herpes, you gave me herpes. It would go from you gave me fucking herpes, I hate your guts, to the guy all of a sudden like being the victim somehow and the woman feeling sorry for him and like nursing his mental health or nursing his emotions and completely neglecting her own. And you didn't do that. So what I want to point out here is like, what is it? Like, I don't know. Like, I don't really know how I want to word this, but hearing you say the way that you handled this is the first time that I've heard it in such a way that went against the grain of what the norm has been out of the people that I've spoken to who were diagnosed and knew where it came from.
Yeah, well, so that's what I was gonna say, is like, to take it back a little bit, I was like, I had been in love with my best friend for like 2.5 years, and he actually had herpes, but when he got it like later and after we slept together from a girlfriend. And so like he was very emotionally abusive and manipulative, and like I would always coddle him, and like he would do like horrible things to me, like like have me send him pictures, and then I found out he has like a 19-year-old girlfriend the whole time, which is like crazy because we were best friends. So it was like he was using me to like avoid being lonely or seeming desperate to these girls that he'd be dating, but then like kick me to the curb, or like just like so quickly dismiss me when he got what he wanted from our relationship. And it's gotten worse over the past few years. It got worse towards the end, and then like, so at the beginning of quarantine, we had been talking, and he was like, can you send me photos? Like, and then I, like, he'd up to FaceTime sexual stuff, which is like, that is more embarrassing than herpes. It's like opening your butthole on FaceTime. And, so he lived in LA, and he was telling me he was like driving up there to like deliver food to the hospital, but then he like one night casually told me he had a girlfriend, and that's who he was going to see. So he had been lying to me this whole time. Meanwhile, we had been talking 3 hours a day on the phone, and like always him being like so sexually forward, and I was just like, I can't do this anymore, like, how could you do this to me again? Like, he always did that. He would always just like use me to like build up his confidence so that he could get back out there and get a new girlfriend who was younger. He's 34 and he's dating like 21-year-olds. And so I was like, I can't talk to you anymore. Like, this is, and I was like devastated by that relationship because I like truly loved him in a way that I just loved him so much. And he like lied and shit the whole time. And I would always, and he would do this, like do horrible things to me. And somehow I always ended up apologizing. It was just so crazy. So I was like that. And then this guy I started seeing after him, and it was kind of a rebound, honestly. Like, I was trying to get over the guy who lived in LA and my friend who lived in LA, and so when he gave me herpes, this guy, I guess I was so fed up from being gaslit and lied to that I didn't give a fuck. Like, I was like so done because it was kind of like back-to-back slaps in the face, and this guy I didn't know that well. Like, we had been dating for a little bit, but like not long enough where I like liked him a lot or like loved him, So that behavior, I was just like, since it was fresh from someone who had really hurt me, it was kind of like a wound that was reopened, and I was just like, I can't even pretend to feel bad for this fucking loser. Like, I am so pissed off of being lied to and manipulated that, like, I felt zero remorse for him. I felt zero remorse for, like, the whole men in general. And I did a podcast about, I talked about this on a podcast probably like 4 months after it happened, 3 months after it happened. And then one guy DM'd me and was like, you clearly hate men. You clearly hate men. And at the time, I really did. And, I think it's me. I choose the wrong men, clearly. But, I just had such a fucking, like...
I love that you said that and, like, lifted your shirt up to stretch a little bit and it says side bitch.
Yeah, this is my shirt that says side bitch that I literally wore in my gynecologist appointment. It's insane. But yeah, no, so I couldn't, I had zero emotional capacity to feel anything for that guy. And I was just like, is every guy a fucking liar? Yeah, not you. I don't know you that well, Courtney, but,
This ain't about me.
You like run a nonprofit, and I'm like, are you an asshole to women?
I don't think anyone can say that.
Yeah, no.
I think,
No, I know girls, like, it kind of feels like if a guy gives them herpes, like, it's kind of like a pre-engagement ring, It's like, oh, now we're bonded forever. That's how some girls think of it, I guess. Or I think women want a relationship, right? So it's like if a guy gives them herpes, it's kind of like trauma bonding together in a weird way. And they think they can take care of them by that. And I'm not generalizing all women are like this, but as a woman, I see that mental, I could see that road that a woman goes down. Because I could have seen myself go down that road. But I was so fed up and so just, like, broken in a way. And I started therapy from the last guy, so, like, I was talking through it with my therapist and really not giving this guy any fucking time because he had already lied to me so much. And had he been nicer and been like, look, I really liked you, and, like, I didn't know, and so I lied, but I truly didn't know. If he had been more honest up top when I had come to him with this, I think I would have had a little more sympathy. But because he kept lying, and then tried to turn on me, I'm like, I'm so fucking done with this bullshit. Like, these guys, and that's why now having herpes, I'm like, it gets rid of the assholes for sure. Yeah. Like, because if someone's not going to date you, if they're going to look at you and be like, oh, they have herpes, I don't want to date you, they are not interested in you at all. Like, they're just a bad person, and what they're looking for is not, like, that's not, if you like someone and I also knew that's why the acceptance was a little easier, because I had been so in love with my best friend who had it that I already, like, weirdly accepted I was going to get it because I thought we were going to end up together, which is so crazy in my head now, thinking, because he didn't even like me, and I was like, I'll just get herpes for him. So, but anyway, I guess my point is, like, I know the feeling of liking someone enough to not care. So I'm like, when I meet someone who I like enough and they like me enough, it really won't matter. Because I've been there on the other side. It doesn't matter. If someone doesn't love you or whatever because you have herpes, is like, all right, they have their own issues, because it's really not that bad, and also they could not get it. It's preventative if you use condoms and, like, Valtrex, and, like, there are ways to not get it and be careful. And even if you were to get it, it's like, yeah, it's annoying, but so are zits, and so is, like, my eczema honestly affects my life way more. That's the thing. My eczema is really bad, so it affects my skin way. I mean, the first outbreak, the only outbreak I've had was really bad, but because it's not happening constantly, I'm like, it's not that big of a deal.
Yeah. So essentially, he triggered you, and your trigger response, because you had basically just been fed up and you were in therapy, led to you taking up for yourself.
Yeah. It was the first, like, I was just like, dude, fuck dating. Like, that's kind of how I felt. I was just like, fuck dating. Like, I can't do this anymore. I can't keep doing this to myself. And this is honestly a good reason to take a break, you know? It's just like, I don't feel comfortable telling people right now I just gotten it. Obviously, I wouldn't go on a date the next day, but like, it was, I was just like so over even trying.
Mm-hmm. So after this interaction ended, what was next? So like you decided, I'm done with this dude and fuck you, fuck off, and now it's just you and you're having to process your diagnosis.
So I had to go to LA it sounds so, I got to go to LA to film a half-hour special for stand-up. And so I was really focused on that, and I was like, I'm gonna stay out in LA for a month because I had gone to school out there, and I had friends out there. My best friend from college lived out there, so I was gonna get like an Airbnb and just live there and quarantine there and stay for the month and go on hikes, be outside. And my friend ended up leaving for half the trip, so I was like literally alone. I don't have a driver's license right now because that expired in COVID, so I couldn't even drive anywhere. And I got so lonely, I downloaded Hinge, and this is probably like 2 months after having it, a month and a half maybe. And then I was gonna meet up with this guy on a date, and I got so anxious about the herpes problem because I was like, well, I'm not gonna have sex with him, and I'm not gonna date him because I don't live in LA. So I was like, what am I doing? Why am I doing this? I need to complete myself. I can't just be like going on dates just to like feel something. And so I canceled like a half an hour before, and like basically I felt really bad. It was
I wonder now, like, if that's why so many people possibly ghost people.
You know what's funny? My friend had a weird situation with a guy, and I was like, dude, it's because he has herpes, and I promise you, because I think that is a lot of it, because it's like you don't want to have to tell someone this thing, but you like do like them, but not enough to tell them, and you're going through a lot, and you're like, I don't owe it to tell this random person I have herpes, like I don't need to do that, so I'm just gonna ghost them because it's easier on my shit. It's so funny you say that because I was telling my friend this. I was like, now every time I get ghosted, I'm like, has herpes. Should have just told me because I have it too. But yeah, I canceled that date, and then I got on. Have you heard of Positive Singles? I'm sure you have.
Yeah.
So I did that for a month, and I went on a date with a guy from that. I left.
Was it a good experience?
No, it was horrible.
Yeah. We can talk about that later.
What?
We can talk about that later if you want to.
Okay, yeah. I'll talk about that date because that was horrible. That was like one of the worst dates I've ever. I left mid-date.
Oh, fuck it. All right, we're here. So, do you find that, and this is something that I've communicated with other women about, is just that there's almost this sense of entitlement with guys. It's like a huge confidence boost. All right, I got herpes. Oh, this hot girl has herpes, and I'm remotely attractive, or I have something going for myself. So I'm the best that you're gonna get. Like, was your date something along those lines of him being super entitled, or like seeming very, very, very like sexually deprived?
No, he seemed very insecure, but for more reasons than herpes.
Oh, shit, yeah. Two different, all right, yeah, I'm going a different direction with what I was saying.
But, like, so I do comedy, and, like, we sit down. First of all, he asked for me to go to him, which I'm always like, that's kind of a lot for a guy to be like, can you come to me? I've kind of had a stressful day, and it's like, all right, we haven't met, but I guess chivalry is dead and gone, so sure, I'll go to you. And he knew I did comedy, and he was just like, yeah, can I say something? And I knew he was going to say women aren't funny, because, like, that's what guys love to fucking say. And I was like, you know what? Like, he was like, can I say something rude? And I was like, you know what? This is our first date. Let's just not say it. Let's not say something rude because we just met. Let's just try to get off. He's like, I want to say it. I don't think women are funny. And I go, why? Because you don't think Amy Schumer is funny? And he was like, yeah. And I was like, okay, well, there are more female comedians than that. Like, why are you? And also, like, who gives a fuck if you think Amy Schumer is funny? He's like, do you think she's funny? And I'm like, yes, I do. So it doesn't matter. It's my perspective. You have a different one. Why are you telling me all women aren't funny? Also, you know I do comedy. Like, that's just rude. And then we go sit down.
This before y'all even sat down?
Yeah, like, literally we were waiting for our table. And so then we sit down for dinner, and he's like, so do you talk about herpes in your act? And I was like, actually, yeah, I just shot a special in LA, and I talked about it. And it went pretty well for not, like, you know, usually with stand-up, you're doing jokes every single night, but these are his first time doing them, and it did well, and he goes, ew, that's so gross. And I was like, what?
This dude you met on a dating site for people with herpes thinks that you doing herpes jokes is gross?
Yeah, he was like, I just don't understand how you can make that funny. And I was like, well, you're not a comedian, so of course you don't know how to make that funny.
Was he trying to build sexual tension?
I don't know what he was trying to do, but he was just like, I just think it's, like, weird to be so open about it. Like, he's like, I'm like, I go, you're on a dating app for people with herpes. He's like, yeah, but I also date, like, normal people, too. Like, I don't know why you're just making this your whole identity. I'm like, I don't even know you. Like, why are you saying? He's like, well, you're talking about in your act, and, like, you are on this app. And I was like, you asked if I talked about my act. Also, you're on the app. Like, I was like, why are you being a dick to me? And also, it's just like, I don't like when guys tell me what to talk about with comedy anyway, because, like, guys have this entitlement of, like, they know it's funny because they're a guy, when it's like, that's not how this works. Like, you can, like, it's so frustrating. So when he said that, I was just like, I've had enough. And he was like, are you calling an Uber? And I was like, yeah, I am. Because it was just another one of those things where I'm like, I've been treated like shit so much. I'm like, I don't feel bad that I'm not gonna sit here and pay my half of this bill to be talked down to.
Yeah.
And also told, like, you know, and what if I were to go and be like, talk about his job? Like, he told me he owns a hedge fund. Okay, well then why do you have a roommate, sir? Like, that doesn't add up. But am I going to say that on a date? No. Am I going to be like, oh, if you're so rich, why do you have a roommate? You must not be doing that well. It's like, you don't say those things. And then another guy from the app, like, only would DM. He was like, let's do Instagram instead of texting. And, like, would only DM me and was, like, really shady. And I was like, oh, this guy's a girlfriend. Like, also, what a pig. This guy, like, is, like, preying off people with herpes who have his disease and then, like, trying to be sketchy about it. So I, like, blocked his ass on Instagram. I was like, this is so... And so I deleted the app because I was like, this app is full of assholes. Like, I think I'd rather just take my chances and then tell someone.
Out in the wild.
What? I'm sorry?
Just take your chances out in the wild.
Yeah, and it's like... And now I have dated a couple guys, and I told... Or not, like, dated, but... I told one guy who I was kind of dating, like, we only had seen each other a few times, but, like, I think it was the third date I told him, and he didn't care. He ended up not liking me for other reasons, so that was comforting. Just my general personality. He told me his type was Kendall Jenner, so I was like, yeah, this probably isn't going to work out. I'm like, everyone's type is Kendall Jenner. Relax. But I was really nervous to tell him because I thought I liked him a lot, and he didn't care.
Yeah. Now, you have absolutely no reason to talk about your experience with herpes. You don't have any reason to make the jokes. You don't have any reason for people to know that you even have it outside of sexual partners. Why do you decide to talk about it so freely and publicly and integrate it into your career?
Because I was so sad. Like, I called the suicide hotline number. I was just so fucking depressed, and I felt so alone, and I felt so, like, you know, people do make jokes about herpes all the time. It's like the the Hangover joke where it's like, do anything in Vegas except herpes because that shit comes back. It's like a guy fucking dies, and they're like, well, we didn't get herpes, you know, or almost dies, and they're like, thank God, haha. Yeah, if we can't find a groom, at least we didn't get herpes. And it's like, it feels like, with comedy, it's kind of like now everyone's getting canceled for everything. And rightfully so. There's a lot of shit that people say that I'm just like, that's sexist, that's just racist, like, that's just not funny, you're just trying to make something. Like, I don't know. I get why people are getting canceled, but with herpes, it is something that so many people struggle with and so many people have that just hearing it as a punchline, it is hurtful. And it is like, okay, so like, haha, I have herpes, like, I have to listen to everyone else fucking tell jokes about it. And it's like not that funny to me. When someone who makes a joke about herpes is like, that's the joke, is herpes, it's like, no, that's actually not funny, and I'm like, I want to talk about it because I want to be in on I want to be in on the fucking joke. Like, I don't want people to make jokes about me. Like, I want to make jokes about herpes because I'm experiencing it and I know, so that when people hear jokes about herpes, they don't feel bad about it. They like relate to it and they're like, thank God, like I feel this way too. And that's what a joke should really be. It shouldn't be like, haha, look at these people who have herpes. It should be like, okay, I now feel less alone. And that's what comedy is supposed to do. You're supposed to like make people feel better about shitty things. And like,
so like you want people to laugh with you about it, not at you about it.
Yeah, and also just like people who have, I mean, I'm not, by no means I'm not you. I'm not a philanthropist here. I'm still trying to make money doing comedy. So, but I do think that I feel less alone talking about it because even when I talk about it, I always get messages like, hey, thanks for saying something. I had one woman email me from a podcast being like, it took me 8 years, and like, I thank you. And then she was like telling me all these foods not to eat. Like, she's like, don't eat hummus. I'm like, I'll take my chances. I'm still gonna eat hummus. And then she's like, please don't say my name, which I thought was so cute that this older woman was emailing me. I don't even remember her name. I was like, what am I gonna say? Blank from blank, like, shout out to you. Also, how many women in every state of every name have herpes? Like, relax. But that's how alone she felt. She felt that if I said a first generic woman's name, everyone knows her. And I'm like, who's everyone anyway, listening to anything? But I guess my point is like, people I've talked to have felt so alone. And I am a very open person. I'm not, I just talk about my life. So I feel bad that some people don't have that outlet, because even I felt like super suicidal, and look at me, I have tons to live for. Just kidding. But like, it can feel so. That was a joke. It just feels like I can only imagine how some people. I just hope that I'm open to talking about it because I really do not think it's that big of a deal, and I did when I first got it. And so I don't think that people, and if we destigmatize it, we as in you and me, we're really we got to make the push here. We'll make t-shirts. But if you destigmatize it, then it is less weird, because the hardest part about telling someone is actually just saying it, because it's like you're worried about how they're going to, because they don't know much about it. No one knows anything about it. They just know it as the punchline of every fucking joke. So it's like no one wants to be the punchline of a joke. So it's like, of course they're going to be like, oh, I don't know if I want to have sex. I don't know, And I think that if someone reacts initially like, I don't know if I'm comfortable with this, it doesn't mean they don't like you. It just, I think, too, a good thing to remember is like when you're telling someone, if they don't react exactly how you want, or like, oh, it's totally fine, it doesn't mean that it's going to be a no, or like they're not going to like you. It just means they're adjusting to it, because it is it's more of a mental disease than anything, like we've said. So it's like, I do think people should give their partner, whoever they're telling, time to process, because it took me like 4 months to process that I had it. So even like being like, is this something I want to maybe sign up for, is like, they should be able to talk to their doctor and like figure out, it is like how much you like someone, right? Because you are, at the end of the day, taking it's a small risk, but it's still a risk. And it's not that big of a deal, but, like, if you see yourself dating this person for, like, a month or two, you're not going to be like, you know what I mean?
Yeah. I would like for us to wrap up. If you're open to talking more about this, you started to tell me a story about a recent interaction that you had, because there's something about STIs and abuse there. I think that our sex education system, what we've been taught growing up, a lot of people, I don't want to speak for everyone, is sex education is exclusively wait till you're married, wear a condom or you'll get an STD or you'll get somebody pregnant. And those are like the three main focal points. Whereas they exclude things like body autonomy, consent, talking about boundaries, managing relationships and expectations, recognizing and acknowledging abuse, and then also being able to seek it for yourself, or seek any type of support for yourself in the event that you are in some type of a situation that there's abuse, or if you have an STI, right? So here I am, 32 years old, only recently hearing about boundaries. And the more podcast interviews I do, the more conversations I have with people, I see where sex education really let us down consistently is by not giving us the tools that we need to uphold boundaries, say no, and recognize abuse, and be able to respond to it. So what you were telling me yesterday on the phone was that you having herpes was the only thing that might have kept you from being raped.
Yeah, I feel like I did I say rape? Because I feel like rape's like a very strong word in that, like,
I use rape. I used it.
yeah.
I didn't.
Isn't
I
it
don't think
crazy
use
that
that
I'm
word.
like, as a woman, I'm like, I don't know if I'd use rape. He was a little forceful with his dick, but like, rape's a big word. He just kept, like, I had gone to his place, we were making out, and like, I had gone down on him, but I did not want to, I didn't let him go down on me. I didn't want to have sex because I was just like, I don't want to have to tell this guy. I don't want to have to explain. You know what I mean? Like, I don't think we're going to date. Like, this just feels like I don't need to give this information up right now.
Wait, okay, question. So you went down on this dude, made out with this dude, had no intentions of furthering anything. Like, okay, if you just went down on him because you just wanted to go down on him, all right, cool. But did you feel like you had to do that in order to, like, make it out alive or anything like that? Like, what?
No. It was just like, I like thought he was cute and I was like into him, but I was just like, I don't want to have to, I just didn't feel comfortable, like, not saying anything, and I also just didn't want to have to tell him. So I was just
Okay.
like, it was totally fine. But then I still had my underwear on, and he kept like pushing it, and I was like, hey, stop, I don't want to. He's like, come on, just a little, and I was like,
Just let me put
no.
the hand in.
Yeah, it's so funny when guys say that. Can we just do it a little bit? It's like, you're asking me to have sex with you. Like, there's no such thing as a little bit of sex. You're having sex or you're not. Just like a little, can I just like put it in? And I was like, no.
Just, I want to see what it feels like.
Yeah, and he kept getting close, and I was just like, stop. And he's like, what's the issue here? Because he knew I wasn't on my period, because he kept like, he fingered me, I guess. I guess this is too much. I don't know.
No. Oh, you'd be surprised some of the shit we talk about on here.
Okay, cool. So he was like, he knew I wasn't on my period, so he was like, okay, what's up? Like, or he just kept pushing, and I forget, did he say what's up, or was I like, look, I have herpes? Because I was just like so annoyed that and what I should have done is taken my shit and gotten out of there, but it was like 5 a.m, and I was too tired to like leave. And he was like, okay, yeah, my brother has that. It's like, why? Okay, like, what? Where's he? But also just like, let's get him in here. Let's do a trade out. But also just like, why are you disclosing, like, that to me was so funny that I was like, hey, I have herpes. He's like, oh, my brother has that. It's like, what are you talking about? Like, your brother, why are you bringing up your brother in this situation? I don't give a fuck your brother has herpes. Everyone has fucking herpes. Of course your brother has herpes. You probably have it too. And he was like, oh, okay. And then, like, he was like, thanks for telling me. And I was like, yeah, sure, no problem. And then he kind of just, like, stopped, and then I never heard from that guy again, and I was just like, you know, I could have not told him and just been like, yeah, sure, do what you're already kind of doing, which is putting your dick inside of me as I'm saying no. And it's just crazy that guys, the entitlement of, like, but honestly, so when I first got it, I was really sad because I was like, I feel like guys tend to use me, and so I feel like I was worthless. It felt a little worthless because I was like, how am I ever going to date now? Like, if I can't even, like, have unprotected sex with a guy, like, he's not going to want to date me. And now I'm looking at it like, that's so shitty. That was what I thought. Like, that's not why I should be dating a guy so he can raw dog it. Like, that's, like, such a weird thing that that makes me more sad than having herpes. Like, my mentality of just, like, you know, this is it. Hang my jersey in the rafters. Like, I'm done here. Like, I'm dying alone. Might as well start buying cats. Like, that's so crazy that I put all my worth into, like, this thing. And had I fucked that guy, I wouldn't have heard from him again anyway. Like, fucking him, you know, I don't come, like, from guys that I don't know. Like, that, it takes more emotional shit than that. So what would I have gotten out of that? Probably a UTI. So in a way, herpes, like, saved me on that front, because I probably, like, I used to be, like, when guys would push me, and push me, I would always be like, all right, like, whatever, okay, because I just, like, didn't know how to say no, you know? I didn't want to, like, I was like, well, I guess I am in his bed, it is his bed, so I guess I owe him sex, and now I'm just like, no, I don't. And, like, if you think I owe you sex, and if you're, like, borderline raping me and you get herpes, that's what you fucking get then. Because that's, like, this is why questions should be asked. And, like, guys should be more respectful of boundaries and, like, asking questions and getting tested. It's, like, not that I know there are women out there who do the same thing, so I'm not trying to generalize just men, but I do feel like men have this entitlement of, like, I don't know, it's just like his persistence to have sex with me that night was like, I guess I've never noticed it because I've always given in, which not always, I'm not like raw dogging all over the world, but like his persistence was extremely obvious to me because I had no intention of fucking him. Like, there was nothing in my mind I was doing it. Because to be nice to him, too. And that's what's crazy. I was like, I'm not going to fuck you for your sake. Like, I don't want to pass this on. Like, I was so sad about it. I don't want to give it to you by accident. Like, I don't fucking know how this shit works right now. It was still, it was like, I guess that was like 2 months ago. So, but the fact that, and then it was like, I felt rejected after in a way of like, oh, but looking back, I'm like, thank God. Like, I would have fucked that guy, and what would I have gone out of that? And I didn't even care telling him, because I didn't even care his opinion at that point. I was just like, and he was like, thanks for telling me, and because he knew I could have just not told him, and fucked him. But I'm not as shitty as he is. So, like, and that's what, so I do the joke in my special, but I always do this thing at stand-up shows where I'm like, raise your hand if you have herpes, and of course no one raises their hand, because no one wants to be called out, obviously, and I'm like, you know what, all of you are fucking liars, so, like, yes, now you know I have herpes, but at least I can die an honest person, and die with integrity, because I'm not a fucking liar, unlike half of this room. And they're
no,
like,
you didn't murder that dude that gave you herpes after you said you'd murder him if he gave you herpes.
I know, I can't even follow through on any of my fucking commitments. Herpes is like the most commitment I've ever had. I think that's why I was so sad about it. I have such commitment issues. I'm like, I have this for life? Fuck. I don't want to do this forever. I don't want to do anything forever.
Yeah, what happened to just getting a ring? I had to get a whole fucking nerve condition.
It's so annoying. But, like, I haven't had an outbreak since. But, like, you know, knock on wood, baby.
Yeah.
Stressful times.
Oh, for sure.
But I do think, I guess going back to what you were saying about boundaries and stuff, it kind of does force you to be like, to have more boundaries. Or it should, if you're not a shitty fucking person, your name isn't George.
Just put them out there.
Put them out there. But I do think it opens the conversation. It, like, does make sex, like, it makes it more important.
Yeah.
And more, like, we treat sex, like, and it's not just... I went to USC, like, this sex culture is, like, insane, and people treat it like it's, like, you're shaking hands. It's crazy, and so now with herpes, it's like, oh, that person's a slut, or that person's a fucking whore, they're dirty, they have herpes. Someone the other day was saying, like, oh, yeah, my friend, he looks dirty. She said he looks dirty and seems dirty and probably has an STD. And I was like, can you not say that? Because I have an STD, and I shower every fucking day. So, like, I'm, like, I have a, like, I have a good job. Like, I support myself. Like, I don't, like, I what I'm saying is, like, I'm not trying to, like, list a bunch of things or whatever, but it's so frustrating. It was so hurtful to hear my friend say that. And then she wasn't talking about me, and she's like, I'm sorry, like, I wasn't talking about, and I was like, of course you're not. Of course not. And it's just like, you're not dirty at all. And I was like, I know, but by you saying that, it makes it okay for someone else to say that about me. And that's hurtful. Mm. And that's when it's like, you know, it's just mean. It's like, and that's what makes people who have it feel so bad, is the other people who don't have it, who are fucking raw dogging all over the world about to get it, they're saying all these jokes that they don't even know what they're saying because they aren't experiencing it.
Exactly.
And so I think by being honest about it, I'm just like, I do feel proud of myself in other aspects of my life that, like, oh, you want to...
No, finish what you were saying.
Oh, that I just, like...
I was gesturing the clock because we got like 90 seconds before the audio cuts off.
Oh, shit. No, I'm just saying that, I don't know. I'm just saying that there's...
That's why I didn't want to say anything. I was like, oh, shit.
No, but there are just bigger things in life, and, like, shittier things are in it. Like, if herpes is the worst thing that happens to me, I have a fucking good life.
Damn. I've said that, and, yeah, I said it, like, a long time ago. But I don't think that really resonates with people until they've been able to do this, like, open up about it and share.
Definitely get a therapist if you can afford it, or there's, like, BetterHelp, or there's that, like, thing you can call it's $30. It's like talking to people, even if you don't want to disclose it, it helps.
Yeah,
for sure.
Hannah, how can people?
No one's alone. So.
How can people find you and connect with you?
I'm Positive Singles. Just kidding. At Hans Dickey, HANSDICKIE on Instagram and Twitter. If you DM me, I'll DM you back. Sometimes I get weird ones, so I'll try to DM you back, but you're not alone, and we're all just, you know, it's a literal speed bump.
Or a cluster of them, depending on how your outbreaks look.
Yeah, it's now a school zone in this pussy.
Oh, shit. All right, that concludes this episode of Something Positive for Positive People. Please like, rate, review, subscribe to this podcast on your favorite podcast player. You can donate today to help our fundraising efforts to connect people who are struggling with their diagnosis to get mental health services. Till next time, stay sex positive.